Hey guys, Eddie here. I wanted to do a video today on how to do some automation using JavaScript, specifically inside of Chrome, and then focusing on LinkedIn. So I've been a contractor for about 30 years. Actually, it's longer than 30 years. And sometimes, the contracts come to an end and I have to go look for work. And typically one of the first things that I and many other people do when they're looking for work is go to LinkedIn. So they typically will go to their network tab and start to reach out to recruiters. So that's what I did about 9 months ago. I went out here, I started looking at some of the cards. If the card looked legit and it had the word recruiter in it, I would click connect. And I would get rid of these ghost cards. We're going to build a script on how to get rid of those no picture cards too. We'll do that in another video. But pretty straightforward concept, just kind of looking for people that are recruiters or the words like talent acquisition, and then connecting with them. So I figured we can automate this. We can make this happen very quickly. So here gonna show you how to go about doing that. All right. So one of the first things we want to do is find the card that is of interest. So let's scroll here and see if we can find anybody that we potentially want to connect with. All right, so we got Keith Daniels here, recruiting manager at Triple Mints. He's hiring. Good. So we want to get some information on this card, the guts, the JavaScript guts, the not really the JavaScript guts, more of the document object model guts. So what you can do in Chrome, which is nice, is you can right-click over any piece of any element, any data, and you can click the inspect key or the inspect button. This will open up your development environment where you can view the elements that you just selected. And what's nice is, the geniuses over at Google have made this tool beautiful. I mean, you can just rest your cursor on any of the elements and they get highlighted within the web page, as you can see. So we're going to focus on, figuring out these elements and then using the console to do some automation. All right, so we can see we've got Keith's card here, and so we know we want to connect with him. So we have to first figure out where's like the top level of this card, because we could easily grab this data right here, this class, discover person, card, occupation, very simple, and it's that class tag is probably consistent across all these cards. I'm just taking a wild guess there, but we'll double verify that. So we could grab that data, and we will need that data at some point because we'll have to check to make sure that the card contains the word recruiter, or at least the word recruit, or talent, or human resources, something of interest that we're looking to connect up with. So this will be a useful tag, but we want to kind of get the parent tag so that we can not only investigate this data, the text, but we ultimately want to get to this connect button, which is what is going to allow us to automate the connection or the request to connect to Keith. So as you can see here, this connect button is somewhere in here, and we can just keep expanding these sections until we get to the button that we want. And there it is. All right, so that's the button control we ultimately want. We also want the data on Keith, which is there. And so we have to, since these are two elements that are kind of separated, they're on the same level, we could use some sneaky DOM to traverse nodes, but it's I don't know. I don't like doing it that way. I'd rather do it what I think is the correct way, which is let's just grab the card in its entirety, and then we can use all of that data and then traverse the DOM in a structured way for all the cards that we encounter. So we're just going to walk up the tree here until we find what we think is the head of the card. So we're getting a lot closer. We're working up the DOM, the document object model, getting closer. All right, so we've got like a hidden button here. Usually, you can read the class and some of the elements within the tag, and it kind of gives you an idea of what the functionality is. So like here it says Art Deco card dismissed. So this is probably a hidden button to dismiss the card. When you rest your cursor, you can see that X appears. That is likely that button. So we want to go up a little higher. All right, so now we're getting good. We're getting up to the section. Let's just go up a little higher. Okay. This looks like probably the top level elements here. Yeah. So if we go back to the prior element, we go to Sam, who, Sam I'm sure is super successful over at ECM, whatever that is, Konica. But he probably doesn't want to connect with us because he's not looking for software developers. Recruiters are. So we can see, just based on these cards, this top level element are all of these lists. So one of the first things we want to do is go get a collection of all these lists. And so we're going to go into our console, and then using some JavaScript, we're going to connect to all those list elements. So we'll just say here var person equals document. So document is kind of the root element of the page. So you'll use that a lot when you're using document object model type stuff. And this goes for not only JavaScript, but your Microsoft products. It's pretty simple to use. Once you dig in, you'll get the hang of it really quick. And so we want to get, since a list is it's a tag, we're going to say get it by tag name. And so we're going to say just give us all the lists on the page. All right, so we got an undefined back. That looks good. So we want to see how many there are. So we'll use the length property to see how many there are. And we got 56. So that's probably about right. There's probably 56 people up there. But we can, interrogate and see if we're on the same page and if we got the right data just by interrogating some of these cards. So let's kind of see where Keith is at from an index standpoint, roughly. So these are probably all lists. So there's probably 4, 8, 12, 16. So Keith is probably like the 17th index, which, its index starts at 1. So he's likely the 16th card, but I haven't checked, so we're going to find out right now. So we'll just do we'll interrogate the inner text property on that card, and it looks empty. So let's do outer text just in case. Okay, so no. All right, so typically when I get into this situation, I just start traversing up because there could be a ton of other list elements embedded elsewhere in the page, which we're not really seeing. It's kind of used by the developers at LinkedIn for background type stuff. So we'll just start traversing up until we get to what looks like Keith's card. And you know what? I'm going to go back to this 16th element, and instead of inner text, I'm going to do inner HTML, because that'll give us some more verbose data on kind of where we're at. Yeah, so I'm not even in like the right area. I'm up at the add stuff, which is typically the left or the top. So what we'll do is we'll pop up really high. We know that there's 56 elements, so we'll go to the 50th element and take a look, and there we go. So now we have a person's data. So that's Lorenzia Shireman. So if we go look for Lorenzia, let's see if we can find Lorenzia. There's Lorenzia. So Lorenzia is the 50th. So Gentleman would be the 49th, 48th, 47th, 46th, 45th. So Keith is probably our 45th index in our collection. I say 45th. Oh, there it goes. Look, it even highlights the card. How beautiful is that? So we know we got the right card now. There we go. There's Keith. We want to connect with Keith. So we now want to find the button right here that we can connect to Keith with. We don't want to click this button. So let's create a button for Keith that well, first let's get the collection of buttons. So we'll say, hey, person 45, which is Keith. We want to do get element by tag name. And we want to grab all of the button elements within Keith's card. So we should get at least 2. Okay, so that's good. We got undefined message back. And in Microsoft, all of their properties, when you're looking at the actual length of something, it's typically referred to as count. In JavaScript, it's referred to as length. So I always, when I'm switching languages, I always get them wrong. All right, so we got 3 buttons. So we know the button we're looking for is probably at the bottom, but we can interrogate these buttons. So we'll just look at the first button, which again, indexing in JavaScript starts at 0. It's funny, a lot of if you do arrays in .NET, they start the index at 0. But there's some Microsoft products, like I know I've been doing a lot of work in Visio, all the indexing starts at 1 on the object. So, there are instances where you will, refer to an object or a collection that starts at 1, but typically in most languages, they start at 0. All right, so we're going to look at this first button. Let's see if it's what we want. All right, so we definitely don't want that first button because it says, that's to remove Keith. So we don't want that. We want to connect with Keith, not remove him. All right, the second button is the 38 mutual connections, which I think is something you can click on to get a list of the people that Keith is connected to. So we definitely want the second button since it's the last one. And there it is. So we're just going to click it. And as you can see, Google, thinks for us. This is why software development is not even a skill anymore. It's more of like just piecing together puzzles. Google, Microsoft, they've made development super simple. All right, so we're gonna execute this. Hopefully, it sends a request to Keith, and we should see the exact same interaction that we would normally see if we were to click this on the front end. So when I click this here through the programming, we should see it. There we go. So it said invitation sent to Keith Daniels. Well, okay, that's great, but we actually want to automate this so that we can cycle through tons of people and not have to constantly write 10 lines of code for every person that we're interested in connecting to. We just want this to constantly scroll through our network connections, our potential network connections, and just click on the people that we are interested in connecting to. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to create a function in JavaScript here in our console so that we can have that function run occasionally and just automate this and just run automatically. So all right, let's create our function. So we'll call this function, let's say function, look at type, function, call it connect. And it looks like I've got my connect function out there already, but this should override it. Okay, and in JavaScript, everything's done with brackets. So I'm typically the guy who does things like this. I'll close off my brackets first, and then I go about coding. So I know that. Oops, I got it. Can't type. All right. So one of the first things we want to do is create a variable for the people. So we'll say person or people, call it people. And then we're just essentially going to do what we did up at the top, which was to get a full list of our lists, because we know those list cards have what we're looking for. So again, you're going to use document. That's the root element in the document object model. You will, there are some unique instances when you're programming in like Microsoft products where the document element is not the root element. You'd have to traverse to like the 0, or you have to actually iterate through how many elements there are. I don't know if it's because of instances where there's iframes or things like that. I haven't encountered it in a while, but I definitely had some frustration around that early on when I started development in this DOM arena. So just keep that in mind if you have some problems with the document object. All right, so we want to get all the elements by tag name, and if you're using document object model, it's this is one of the most used commands. The top 5 commands that you see here, the get elements by ID, class name by name, tag name, and S. You'll use these a lot, especially the by tag name, by class name, and by ID. Those are super convenient, easy to use. So we can say, hey, just give me all the list elements. Okay. I don't know why it keeps. I want it to wrap. I think I maybe have to hit Control Enter here. Oops. Maybe Alt Enter. Nope. Shift Enter. There we go. Shift Enter. Okay. All right. So we now have our list of people. Well, now we want to look at each person and see if that person has text that we are looking to connect with, like the word recruiter. All right, so we could start from the bottom up, work from the first element and just go to until we hit the last element. But we know that these list elements are later in the array, so we can start our counter high and work backwards. So we'll say variable I is going to be people length, and then -1. Okay, so that should give us, in this current iteration, it should give us about 56 cards, whatever it was, 55, 56 cards. Okay, so now we want to create a for loop that we can traverse through and interrogate each of those cards in our collection and look at the text to make sure that it has a word that we're looking for. So let's do this. Let's say for. I always forget the format because I'm working in VB all the time. So I'm going to cheat and go to my gist. I used a while here, so we can use while. So we'll say while I is either less than while I is. We want it greater than or equal to the div length. Yeah, this one I'm working up. I want to work down, so I'll say while I is greater than 0. That'll work. So while I is greater than 0, and same structure. Got to put the brackets in. Okay. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to interrogate that card for the data that's in it. Now we know that we could just interrogate the person's inner card text and we see exactly what they're doing, and we see the word recruit in there. So we know that's someone that we likely want to connect with. So we have to interrogate that card, and if the card has, let's say, the word recruit anywhere in it, that we want to connect with that person. So we're going to write our if statement, and we're going to say if people, because we changed the collection name, people I dot inner text. And then we're going to use the index of command. So index of is very powerful. It allows you to find an index in basically the placement of where the thing is, that string of text that you're looking for within the thing you're interrogating. And so if we get a number that's, now again, this can also index at 0, so it could be position 0. So basically any number that's greater than or equal to 0, we want to connect with that person. So we'll say where the index of and we want to look for the word recruit. And so that won't limit us because it'll either say recruiting or recruiter. So we just have the root of it, which is good enough. As long as we get a positive number, we're good. If we get a negative number, if it's -1, then we know it's false. So if index of right is greater than or equal to 0, and we're actually even safe just saying greater than 0 because you can tell by the inner text it's popping that quote in there before member's name. So we know it's going to likely start down here. So we don't have to worry about doing greater than or equal to in this instance. So if we find a card we like, we know we want to click it. So let's tab in here. And then let's click that particular card. So we're going to say, well, we have to set a reference to the card, obviously, which we haven't done yet. So we'll say set button equal to people I dot get elements by tag name. And we're going to get all buttons, which there should be 3 for each card. And because we're in the function, we lost the IntelliSense. So Google should still, or JavaScript should still recognize this, but if it doesn't, then we know there's a problem. And also, you can interchange single and double quotes, single apostrophe and double quotes. Typically, when I'm in Java, I'll use the single apostrophe, or just the apostrophe rather, single quote. And sometimes I go to double quotes with, I don't know why I do it with tag name. It's just kind of embedded in my head, but they are interchangeable. Okay, I think I'm forgetting my yeah, I knew I was forgetting something. In JavaScript, you have to use semicolons. I always forget that. So let's put semi. So at the end of every line, you have to tell it's the end of the line and put in a semicolon. So for block statements like the while and the if, we don't have to do it, but for everything else, we do. Okay. And so we have our button object, and we know we want to click the second instance of this. There we go. And now the IntelliSense came back. I guess maybe it's because I added in my line return. Maybe not. Something tells me we're going to get an error, but that's fine. We'll just debug it. Okay. So what I typically will do is I usually stage these functions within my Notepad editor, just because it's makes it easier instead of just typing in here. So we'll do that here. And as you can see, I've already got the function staged, and this is essentially the one that we're going to use. Okay. So, but we'll create a new one just so that we all stay on the same page. Okay. It looks like we've got an extra bracket there. That's not good. Okay. What's also nice about staging this within Notepad is that you can make the code look clean. So I really am a stickler for clean code. As you can see now, it's looking a lot better. There we go. Okay, so now if we hit enter, we should have this function registered. So if we go back to our environment here, we hit enter. Oh, unexpected identifier. So we got, all right, so we do have a problem here. So it might not like the fact that we haven't made this case sensitive. So get element by tag name probably needs to be case sensitive. That's my guess. So we'll do that. We'll go back to our staged area and we'll say, I'll just copy this over from here. Okay, and then we can just copy this entire thing. Oh, still didn't like it. All right, so let's see what's going on here. What did I do wrong? I'm not sure what I did wrong there. Looks clean. I'll put a single apostrophe, but I don't think that's the challenge. I'm going to compare with my one that I pushed previously just to see what's going on. Oh, did I not put a var? Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I've been coding in .NET all day, so and actually you don't even use set in .NET, but use it in VBA. And whenever I go to assign an object to something, I always use the word set because I've been programming in VBA for years. And the way you set an object is with the set command. Jeez. All right, I'm awake now. All right, so we'll go back to our console. This should give us the function properly now. It's var instead of set. There we go. All right, so it looks good. So we have our registered function. Now we can, well, one thing I did forget is I forgot to add the counter. So I will never increment or decrement. It will stay on that one record. So let's add that in. So what's also nice about JavaScript is that you can use these compounds. I think they're called compound. Ooh, what's the phrase? It's basically instead of doing I equals I minus 1, which is valid, you can just save a couple keys there and just say, hey, I minus minus, and that's as good. All right, so we'll re-register this function back in our console. Boom. All right, so now let's execute it. Hopefully, we'll see cards start getting clicked automatically. So like Nathan McCulley should be one of the cards that gets clicked. So the way we can run this is we can just say connect. And you have to use the brackets because otherwise it'll just give you like a pointer to where the function's at. It shows you the definition of your function. If you want to execute your function, you've got to do the open and close brackets. And so let's see if this works. All right, so there we go. Nathan McCulley got clicked. I guess he was the only one in there with the word recruiter, and we can just do a quick glance just to see if that's the case. And yeah, so he was the only one in there with recruiter. So we can actually set this thing on a timer and have it scroll automatically for us. And that's the one that's in my gist hub. So if you can copy this, I'll copy this address out to the video so that you can just grab this code and just run it. What it will do is it will automatically scroll for you, and it will automatically run this every, in this case, 2 seconds. But I'm going to grab my code from this one. We'll copy it, and we'll run it, and I'll show you how it runs. All right, so this one should just run automatically. We should see it scrolling. We should see it making connections to people with the words staff or talent or recruit in there. And you can see Ryan Stanford. Now, what's interesting is this Windows scroll command should have this page scrolling down for me automatically. I'm not sure why it's not running, though. This is interesting. I'll have to look into that. Let's see. All right. Well, you can. I'll do some research into why my scroll command has stopped working, but you can scroll, and as you scroll, it will automatically click anybody with the word recruiter. So you see Vamshi. You won't even see anybody with your keywords appear on the screen as you scroll because this is running every 2 seconds. So you might see them for a split second, but then they're going to be taken off the screen pretty quick. In another video, I'll show you how to get rid of these annoying ghost cards where there's basically no picture. Who wants to connect with someone who doesn't show their face on LinkedIn? I also hate this when people put in these idiotic, like the brand name or something like that. It's like, no, we want to connect to a person, not to an image. All right, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up.